There is a quiet kind of person in this world, someone who moves through life softly, without the constant glow of a screen announcing their thoughts, their meals, their milestones, or their memories. They live in the same world as everyone else, but they walk through it with a silence that confuses many and reveals more than people realize. In a generation where life is measured in likes, reposts, and digital applause, the ones who don't post at all are often the ones carrying the heaviest stories. People who avoid social media are not always doing it because they lack content. Many of them have entire worlds inside their minds, memories they never share, wounds they never show, triumphs they never celebrate publicly. Sometimes their silence is not emptiness but overflow. Behind every quiet profile, there is a person who has learned that life is not always something you broadcast. It is something you survive. A sad truth about people who don't post is that many of them have learned the hard way that visibility can be painful. Some grew up giving too much of themselves, emotionally, mentally, and socially, only to realize that being seen often comes with being misunderstood. They learn to shrink themselves in order to feel safe. They learn to become observers rather than participants. And somewhere along the way, they discovered that silence hurts less than judgment. For some, social media feels like a stage they never asked to stand on. They feel like the world expects them to perform, to smile when they are breaking, to post achievements when they feel stuck, to share happiness when they are barely holding themselves together. Social media thrives on illusion, but people who don't post have difficulty pretending. They find it easier to stay invisible than to create a version of themselves they don't recognize. They are often the ones who think too deeply, feel too intensely, and care too sincerely. The digital world, with its surface-level emotions, feels unfit for them. Another sad psychology truth is that many people who rarely post have experienced emotional withdrawal in real life long before they withdrew online. Maybe they had friends who disappeared when they needed them most. Maybe they shared their vulnerabilities with people who weren't gentle enough to handle them. Maybe they were laughed at for being themselves. After enough hurt, silence becomes a shield. They stop publicly sharing not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't believe anyone truly listens. There are also those who stay off social media because they carry a quiet loneliness. The kind of loneliness that cannot be captured in a selfie or a caption. They scroll through others' lives and see people smiling, traveling, celebrating, falling in love, thriving, and something inside them sinks. They feel left out of a life they've never lived. Posting feels pointless because they fear their reality will look too empty, too ordinary, too sad compared to everyone else's highlights. They don't want to compete. They don't want to pretend. They don't want to expose the emptiness they fight every day. Some people who don't post also hide because they feel unworthy. They compare themselves to others constantly. They see people with perfect bodies, perfect lifestyles, perfect relationships, perfect achievements. They internalize the idea that their lives are too small, too flawed, too insignificant to share. They fear ridicule, judgment, or indifference, so they say nothing instead. Their silence becomes a quiet acceptance of inadequacy, a belief that their existence is not interesting enough to be displayed. There is also the group of people who carry heavy pasts, traumas, betrayals, heartbreaks, losses they never healed from. They learned that privacy is protection. Every photo they never post is a memory guarded carefully. Every story they never share is a wound that still lives beneath the skin. They've lost people they trusted. They've been abandoned, manipulated, or misunderstood. They built walls not for decoration but for survival. Social media becomes another place where they choose not to be touched or hurt again. Some stay away from posting because they fear being forgotten. It sounds ironic, but it's true. They worry that if they post, no one will react. No one will comment. No one will care. The absence of validation feels like rejection, so they avoid the risk entirely. They protect themselves from the quiet heartbreak of invisibility. Sometimes, not posting is easier than facing the painful possibility that their presence on someone's feed means little to anyone. Others hide because they are deeply self-critical. Their minds replay every flaw, every mistake, every imperfection, until the idea of posting anything becomes a battle against themselves. They analyze every picture, every angle, every caption until everything feels wrong. They delete more than they post. They doubt more than they share. Their silence comes from a place of internal war. A war between wanting to be seen and fearing what that visibility will reveal about them. There are also those who don't post because they are simply tired. Tired of the noise, the pressure, the expectations. They carry emotional exhaustion that no filter can cover. They've been through more than they speak of. Their hearts have been heavy for years. Posting feels unnecessary when everyday life is already overwhelming. They withdraw because they have nothing left to give to the world. They are healing in ways that require privacy, not performance. Another sad psychology fact is that people who don't post often care more deeply than they show. They might not express themselves online, but they watch silently. They check on friends from afar. They celebrate in private when good things happen to others. They feel others' pain deeply. Their absence from posting doesn't mean absence of emotion. It is often the presence of too much emotion. They are the ones who feel everything and show nothing. Not posting can also be a sign of emotional independence. But behind that independence is sometimes a history of being forced to rely only on themselves. They learn not to ask for help. They learn not to seek attention. They learn to handle everything alone. Their silence is a quiet statement. I don't expect anything from anyone anymore. It's sad, but it's real. For many, the decision not to post is their way of protecting the few pieces of themselves that the world hasn't damaged. Their life becomes something intimate, sacred, and personal. They live quietly, not because they are hiding from the world, but because they are healing from it. And healing rarely happens in public. Some people also avoid posting because they fear resurfacing emotions they buried. Sharing moments, memories, or milestones can bring back reminders of people who are no longer in their lives, dreams that no longer exist, or versions of themselves they outgrew painfully. Silence becomes their way of moving forward without reopening old wounds. Another sad reality is that people who don't post often feel forgotten by others. They are the friend who is always supportive but rarely noticed. The one who listens but rarely speaks. The one who shows up but is rarely remembered in photos or tags. Social media amplifies this feeling. Posting feels pointless when you already feel invisible in real life. And then there are people who stay away because they are painfully aware of time. They realize how temporary everything is. Friendships, relationships, even memories. Posting starts to feel like trying to freeze something that can never be frozen. They live quietly because they know that nothing lasts forever, and capturing it won't change that. The saddest truth of all may be this: people who don't post often have the most to say. They have thoughts that could fill books, emotions that could break hearts, stories that could change lives. But they keep it all inside because somewhere along the way, they learned that silence is safer than vulnerability. They are the ones who love quietly, hurt quietly, heal quietly. They live in worlds that few people ever see. Their silence is not emptiness, it is depth. Their absence is not lack, it is protection. Their quietness is not weakness, it is survival. And maybe, just maybe, the ones who don't post are the ones searching for something real in a world that celebrates the artificial. They aren't hiding from life. They are trying to protect what's left of themselves in a world that takes too much. They carry stories behind their eyes that will never touch a screen. They feel emotions strong enough to overwhelm a timeline. They know heartbreak, loneliness, overthinking, and self-doubt in ways they'll never express online. Their silence is a language, and if anyone listened closely enough, they'd hear the truth. Some people don't post because they are fighting battles no one knows about, healing wounds no one sees, and carrying hearts heavier than any caption can describe.